Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and Master Certified Life Coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today's episode is all about burnout, a wake-up call, and a midlife transition to owning your voice. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your Master Certified Coach and Midlife Mentor, and I am so glad to be here with you again for this week's episode, which is an awesome midlife transition and transformation story of going from a professional speaker to a speaking coach and strategist because of a scary wake-up call. I love a good transformation story, that's for sure, but I really wish that as women in the middle, we wouldn't wait so darn long, feeling so busy, so stuck, so unhappy before we do something about it. That happened to me too. You may have heard my story about being stuck for 5 long years. That's 260 weeks of stuckness. What a waste of valuable time. It was so painful. I learned a lot about myself though, and you'll also hear more about how that happened from my guest today too. But just quick, I want to share an awesome opportunity for you because midlife transformation coaching can be the fastest way to rediscover joy and purpose after 50 and 60. That's because learning to become the queen of your brain domain is the key way to become more intentional with your life. That means more of having your own back, more living in alignment with your priorities, more focus on what you have time to still do versus what you're running out of time to do, and more confidence about regret-proofing your life. As I said before, being stuck or frustrated or just knowing that you're meant for more but not moving forward is a giant waste of time. But don't worry, I can help you put time on your side for a change. If you're ready to stop waiting and start living, and that's really what it feels like, then the Women in the Middle Academy is exactly where you need to be. More clarity about what you really want, that's key. Think about it. Where do you want to be a year from now? Do you want to be where you are, or do you want to be someplace else? I don't mean like moving. Well, maybe it does mean moving, but you know what I mean. Like, do you want to have made progress? Do you want to have moved forward? And can you get there on your own? Or would some master level coaching support and an amazing community of like-minded women make it easier and more fun? Ask yourself that. Imagine what finally putting yourself first would feel like for you. I want to share 2 quick testimonials with you about the experience of the Women in the Middle Academy. Laura shared this. Joining Women in the Middle Academy has been one of the best decisions I've made. I've completed all of the monthly work that helped me get a better handle on what I want in this next chapter. It has also helped me improve my relationships, try new adventures, and my outlook is now hopeful and happy. And Renee shares, I was floundering and lost. Learning how to think about my thinking has been so helpful. I can say I have the tools to keep moving forward and growing in midlife, thanks to you. Those testimonials were so awesome, and they really are so accurate in terms of what I hear over and over again from Women in the Middle in the Academy. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank the members who show up for themselves, my clients who show up for themselves and do the work. It can be very vulnerable. You have to, sometimes I imagine being a cartoon character and there's smoke coming out of my brain because I'm thinking so hard. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes you just get asked a great prompt or you get some coaching or you respond to something you hear somebody else being coached on and you get the insight, you get the breakthrough. But really, it's about the way that you show up for yourself and how open you are to doing the work. Of course, the Academy is going to help you along the way, but so much of it also has to do with how you show up for yourself. And if you do, you're likely to get amazing results. So I want to invite you to apply and book your free no-obligation momentum call. That's the best way to take an easy baby step and just talk with me to see if this feels like a good fit for you. You can ask all your questions. And then there's also some bonuses that you're going to love for joining this month. So make sure to get into my calendar. Just head over to www.talktosusie.com and you can book it there. Okay, now let me tell you about my amazing guest. Today's interview is with Laurie-Ann Murabito. She's a professional speaker who went from helping companies like Johnson & Johnson and American Towers with their leadership to helping coaches, consultants, and service providers learn how to write and deliver captivating presentations to use as their best form of marketing, all because of an incident at the Fort Lauderdale airport. Laurie-Ann is a speaking and visibility coach and a reformed, painfully shy gal who accidentally became a professional speaker. She works with coaches and consultants to write and deliver captivating presentations to establish credibility, attract ideal clients, and monetize their authority. She combines her years as an award-winning professional speaker, executive leadership coach, and her obsession with neuroscience. Laurie-Ann is the best-selling author of Rethink Leadership and Rethink Your Leadership and the host of the Be in Demand podcast. I know you're going to get so much from this interview, so please enjoy. Hi, Laurie-Ann. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Women in the Middle podcast.
Susie, I am so excited to be here with you again.
I am too. And thank you so much for being persistent booking a time, because I know sometimes things come up and we work with that. And it's awesome. I'm so happy to see you today. Tell us a little bit about what was going on for you in your 40s. What was your life like? And when did you kind of know that something was off and needed a tweak?
Oh, God, my 40s seems like so long ago, first off. And it's like this whole other chapter of my life that I feel like I was on the treadmill. I was just working. I was speaking in leadership. I was an executive coach for leaders that were very high up in organizations. And I worked with industries around the globe and like a number of industries. Everything from the United States military to oil and gas to healthcare. I mean, like you name it, because leadership is leadership.
Yeah. And this was before Zoom, right? Because
Yeah.
Zoom changed everything. So you were flying around?
I was flying around, and also like with my private clients, it was like more telephone.
Yeah.
So like they couldn't, which is nice when you can't always have the visual. You hear stuff. And as a coach, I think having come from that type of coaching, like you get really good at listening to the pauses, to what's being said, what's not being said, the certain choice of words. So then like nowadays, like we add Zoom to it, and like I can just see body language. But like I really enjoyed helping leaders, but it was a very busy time in my life.
And how old are you now? So what are we talking about? How long ago that was?
I'm 57 now.
So you're 57. Well, I'm older than you, my friend. So don't you worry. We celebrate age around here.
Yes.
There's more wisdom to be had.
Yes. It's so funny. Like I love birthdays, whereas like you say to people like, hey, happy birthday. Oh, I don't celebrate them anymore. I'm like, do you know how lucky you are that you get to celebrate as many birthdays as you do, versus there are people in this world that, and just areas of the world that don't have the opportunity to live as long as you do.
I'm telling people that all the time too, because I far outlived both of my parents, who died at 32 and 41. So me at 61, that's worth the celebration.
It is a huge celebration.
Yeah, not everybody has the privilege to age, so we're going to absolutely celebrate. So I guess what it sounds like is that you were just working and you weren't really present. You weren't like, did you have hobbies or anything back then? What did you do for fun?
During the spring and summertime, I love to garden. I love to be outside. I love nature. But like gardening and tending to plants, was always like, okay, let me like hurry up to Home Depot on this weekend. I've got it free. I'll get the plants. And then they would sit there in the driveway and I would water them every day until I had that other free moment, which sometimes could have just been an hour. It's like, okay, let me like hurry up and plant you. All right. The rest of you, like you're going to get planted later. So it was always like a little bit of a rush, fit it in when I could. So I wouldn't say like I wasn't even fully present with my planting.
No, you weren't. And you know what's funny is I'm looking at your notes and you made a reference here, and I quote, I had a terrible habit of working and not stopping to smell the roses. You weren't smelling the roses or planting the roses.
Yeah, I was just like, hurry up, let's get this done. Check. Okay.
Yeah, that's really, I know, everybody listening can relate to that. It's so not being in the present moment.
Constantly like thinking about like the next to do, the next day, the next trip, the next appointment, the next client, and just never really appreciating or being grateful for like, what am I doing today? Who do I get to have these conversations with, and just really, really be in the moment. So,
I know I always joke we might have the magnet about being present. We might have the pillow cover about being present. But are we really present? No, not so much.
no, and I feel like as, you know, a single entrepreneur, and when I say single, like, you know, like working for myself, not always having a huge team, because I mean, if I don't coach the clients, there's nobody to coach the clients, and just constantly thinking that one day I'm going to be able to slow down. One day I'm going to go take that week-long beach vacation, read the books that I want to read. You know, and I think back to like when I was in my 20s, I actually did that. I actually was a little more present with my life, but I was also working for a hospital. I had a job. I took vacation time and would go on those beach vacations and just enjoy a book, enjoy reading it, enjoy the person I was with.
Yeah, so many midlife women tell me they're too busy to read a book. That's the direct quote. I feel too busy to read a book. So when you were in this phase, did you know that you were stuck? Like had it started to occur to you that you weren't as happy as you could be, that things needed a tweak? How were you thinking about that phase?
I didn't even notice it. What is that phrase about like the frog, you know, in the slow boiling water? You know, it's like you don't even realize what's happening because it's always just one more, just one more. Like I'll do that this weekend. Like I'll relax, you know, like I'll learn how to do that. I'll read a book every night, but you know, like I go to bed and pick up the book and like you read the first paragraph and all of a sudden you're snoozing and the book is on your chest, you know, and then you wake up and it's like, oh, I'll just put that down and try that again tomorrow.
Try it again, have to start at the beginning again because you can't remember a thing and you fell asleep immediately.
That's right. So I think it was constantly this like one more, just let me do this one more task, you know. So I'm just going to use like a healthcare analogy. In healthcare, you know, nurses are known for, and I wasn't a nurse, but I did do cardiac and vascular ultrasounds, and it would just be like one more patient, one more ER patient, like I'll squeeze them in, and then I'll have lunch. Or I'll eat in between patients, which meant I learned how to eat really fast, which is not always good for your digestive system. And I'll go pee after the next patient.
If you remember to go to the bathroom then, I mean, that really not allowing yourself to go to the bathroom because you feel too busy is really something. Like, can you imagine what your grandmother would have to say about that behavior?
Oh, she would sit me down and sit down there, young lady.
Exactly. And I love just how honest you're being about not even understanding that this was becoming a problem for your health, a problem for you, your mood, all the things, right? It's just starting not to be the best way to live your life. Did you think you had burnout? Were you aware of the idea of burnout? Was any of that coming to you?
I think you start to look around you, like you are the people that you hang around with. And, oh, they're busy too. You know, like, so we start comparing ourselves to our immediate circle, not realizing I have choice on who my immediate circle is. So I look around me, it's like, oh, well, they're super busy too. That's how you build a business. Even when I was like in healthcare, I think I got a lot of positive reinforcement for getting as much done as I did. So like, you know, like badge of honor, look how many patients I did today. But I didn't get a chance to go pee until I got home. But as entrepreneurs, I think it's, at least back when I started, you know, there wasn't this like decide on the life that you want your business to grow into and fit into. It was, let me just build, build, build. So that meant work, 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 which also meant late into the evening after the sun went down, like I'm still doing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I also didn't think it was burnout, but I started to have eyeball pain. And it was really weird to have a physical symptom of exhaustion and grind and just not taking care of myself. And it's funny because when we started our call today, I said that I had eye pain today, but I really didn't sleep well last night. Last night was a little bit different, but it is when it happened to me maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I didn't recognize it right away. But then when it started to happen, I did think to myself, wow, I wonder if this is burnout.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I think back then, burnout wasn't a word or a phrase that was even used. I think if I had gone to the doctors, they would have been like, oh, you have chronic fatigue syndrome. Like, here's a prescription for you, which wouldn't have solved anything. But it's the doing, and not knowing anything else. And I think as women, we just grow up. I know that my mom was a doer.
Same.
She did a lot until she literally had her first anxiety attack. And that's she ended up driving herself to the hospital because she didn't know what was wrong. Drove herself to the hospital. She stayed there for a couple of days. And that just changed everything. And that's when she got diagnosed with being bipolar. And then she was in bed for many days, many weeks at a time with her depression. But just the go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And so that's what I grew up thinking. Oh, that's normal for women.
Yeah, that's normal for women.
Mm-hmm.
For women who want more.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I know in your story, something really big happened in an airport, and that made you pause. So can you tell us what that was like? How did that all happen?
Now, I want to reinforce that I was not in this airport at the time. And it's something that happened down in Fort Lauderdale in January of 2017. And most people don't remember this incident unless you live around the airport. I was home in between trips. And when I say in between trips, it was one of these situations where I had my carry-on. I got home, took out the dirty clothes, threw it into the washing machine, took that from the dryer, threw it back into the suitcase because I was leaving the next day. So this was my life at the time. What happened down in Fort Lauderdale made very big news. Here in the United States, you're allowed to travel with your firearms if you have the right paperwork. And when I say travel, that means it has to be a checked bag. Well, baggage claim is out of TSA's jurisdiction. A gentleman went and grabbed his bag, went into the men's room, put together his semi-automatic rifle, came out shooting. Now, the FAA literally runs aviation around the globe. And every plane that was in air had to land at the nearest airport because they were afraid of copycats. The gentleman did kill 2 people. I can't remember how many people got injured. But that incident just literally made me say, universe, I need a new business model. Because when you have a cell phone, if you call somebody and if they're on the phone or they're busy, it gets diverted right to their voicemail. This was the second time in my life where I had a cell phone making a phone call and I got a busy signal. The other time was 9/11, making a phone call, busy signal. And you just never get a busy signal with a cell phone. So, and I was trying to call my husband, who was also traveling a great deal at that time. And literally I was just like, I need a new business model. And that's all I said, Susie. And 2 weeks later, I got a text message from somebody that's Laurie-Ann. Do you write speeches for people? So I know that was just a very heavy story for anybody who's listening. And I'm just looking at your face and it's just it was very life-changing. And what if I had been at that airport? Think of all those people that were on that flight. There was a lot of talk in the National Speakers Association about planes literally stopped on the tarmac in Fort Lauderdale, and it was get off the plane, leave all your stuff. You were sliding down that that the emergency that they tell us in the beginning of the flight constantly. It was
that thing that we're all afraid to do.
Yes,
under duress.
These people actually did it And like flight attendants, they were like, walk in the opposite direction of the airport.
Wow.
They just wanted to get people, as many people away from the airport as possible. And I just thought, oh my God, like, is it possible to have a business where I didn't have to hop on and off airplanes? And
Right. And the constant thought that this could have been worse. It could have been me. You know, people were killed.
yeah,
And it's just the constant spin of that was a very close call. Is this what I want to do in my life? It was a wake up call.
is this what I want to keep doing? And the answer was no. I didn't want to keep hopping on and off airplanes. It's like, when was I going to enjoy life? When was I going to smell those roses? I don't know. Like next week, next
Right.
year.
And the thing about asking questions like that in coaching, we always say, well, when you ask yourself a question like that, the answer is actually what you're thinking. So if you're spinning on when am I going to do this? When am I going to do this? The thought is most likely, I'm never going to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't for me. I think I'm lying to myself. I think this is going to happen. But we all know that when we set a goal and we're not in the present moment, as soon as we attain the goal, we just move the goal and make it farther out. We're never there.
Exactly. I'll slow down next week, next month, next year. I mean, it's just like the answer is always going to be next week, next month, next year. And so it's like you just never get there. Just like you said, you keep moving the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise you now in hindsight that that was a wake up call, that was your wake up call?
It definitely was in hindsight, but then that moment was just an inconvenience.
What do you mean?
Well, the whole airport thing was an inconvenience. I mean, I was very grateful that I wasn't flying that particular day. But if I had been, like let's just say I was going from Boston to LA, and had to stop over in Oklahoma for who knows how long. But could you imagine, like, if I was speaking the next morning? I mean, who knows when I would have gotten there? So I probably, had I been in the air, I would have looked at it as like, oh my God, this is so inconvenient for me. Whereas because I was home, it had a very different impact and a different meaning. And I didn't see it as a wake up call. I didn't even see like me saying, hey, universe, I need a new business model as anything more than just a spur of the moment, phrase that I used, not really thinking anymore beyond that. But the fact that I got a text message 2 weeks later, it was just like, that's weird.
Yeah, you put it out there, even though you didn't really think you were putting it out there. I've seen that with my clients so many times. And I know if you're listening right now, you might be thinking, oh, that's a little too woo for me. Or maybe, of course, Susie, that's what happens. So wherever you are on that kind of a spectrum, I have also seen that happen, that just because you think it doesn't mean it's not out there. You had a thought that there needed to be a change, that this wasn't working for you anymore. And the way I describe wake up calls, which are very common in midlife, it's jarring. That's the best way I know to describe it, because it could be something like this, or it could be like a diagnosis, or it could be who knows what, right? But it's jarring. It's enough that made you pause and reflect.
Yes. And the woman who texted me, she'd seen me speak a couple of times. She actually won a coaching session, which is how she had my phone number to text me in the first place. And, my answer, internally was like, no, I don't write speeches for people. I only write my own. But, it's just like, hey, I'll meet you. Like, I know who you are. Let's see how I can help you. And it really was just saying yes to that. And, when it comes to the universe, I always say, like, follow the breadcrumbs. I had no idea where this breadcrumb was leading me. I was just like, let me help this woman out. She'd had a business, a side hustle that was going to become a retirement hustle for 5 years and had been just losing money for 5 years. I can help you. Like, here's my heart is showing up, and let me help you. And in helping her, I had so much fun. I couldn't believe how much fun it was to teach somebody how to write a signature speech that they were proud to deliver, and they would feel confident knowing it was going to help them with their business. It was going to position them as the expert and draw them in. And it was just She hit a home run. She hit a grand slam, as a friend of mine called it. You know, after her first speech, she got referred to 2 other places to speak. Half the people, so 50% of a small audience, joined her email list, and she walked away with 3 full-paying clients.
Wow.
That's a game changer. And she was
Yeah.
a stylist. What she did was she helped people to help them dress in their personality so that they would be perceived as professionals, you know, and just be able to show up as their true authentic self. Because like then their energy changes by getting out of the black outfit, which I realize I'm wearing a black shirt here today.
Oh my. And when I have interviewed a stylist, she said, "You're just a talking head when you wear black. You must wear colors." And she gave 3 colors that were neutral and most people could wear. And of course I interviewed her as well and I was wearing black. Yeah, it is something we fall into. But why do you think, what did she see in you with your coaching hat on that encouraged her to ask you this question?
Because she's seen me speak twice.
She saw you speak, but when you met with her, it was as a coach.
Yes.
Interesting.
But it was me kind of like, let me be your friend. Tell me what's going on. She tells me about this failing business. And you gotta remember, like, so she asked me to write a speech for her. Now, I'm not going to write your speech because then now you have to go through the task of memorizing what I wrote. And it would be easier for me to teach her how to write her own speech so that then she remembers exactly what she's going to share. But she remembered like how I converted an audience. Like so she experienced what it's like to be in the audience with me. So it's like, hey, can you teach me what you did?
It's fascinating when people make the link of how to apply skills. I am actually fascinated by applying skills, and I find it such an untapped source of gold with midlife women wanting to make some kind of a career transition, not thinking about or appreciating, which is exactly what happened to you, well, this one wasn't really a soft skill, but it's thinking of your professional contribution in a completely different light.
Yes. Yes. And it's amazing. And I agree that we take what we're good at for granted.
Yes.
Like, oh, everybody knows how to do this. Well, no, not everybody knows how to do this. I mean, reform painfully shy girl who accidentally became a professional speaker. Like, people are always like, how did you do that? Taught my nervous system new skills. And you're right. Like, I just take it for granted because it's something that I did so long ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about it now in hindsight, do you see other parts of your life, other times where education was fun for you?
Education was fun for me. I remember, and this was when I was in a hospital, I was doing an ultrasound of a gentleman's heart. And I know it was a gentleman because I was still in the room writing up the report as he was like buttoning up his shirt. And with a woman, like I would have stepped out of the room so she could change out of the gown. And something that I said to him, he said, you might really enjoy the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. First personal development book I ever had.
Wow.
It was my very first self-development book. And this gentleman opened up a whole new world for me. I remember grabbing a piece of scrap paper, wrote down the name of the book, and the hospital was right down the street from a Barnes & Noble. And I said to him, I will either get it tonight or at the latest tomorrow. Very first book I've ever had. I still have the original copy. I still have this book. It completely changed my life.
Why did he recommend it to you?
I said something. And I don't even know what I said, but I would always talk with my patients.
This is great. You're getting all these signs, and these things are all happening for you. And all you needed was the wake-up call. Now, not that we would wish a wake-up call on anybody, and certainly not that horrible incident in the airport, but it happened for you in a weird way in terms of the timing and you being able to notice what happened and notice how you felt as a result. Huge. Right. You can't plan this stuff.
No, you can't. And you follow the breadcrumbs. I mean, I had no intention of becoming a speaking coach, but I had so much fun helping this woman craft something. She hits a home run and it's like, oh, I wonder if anybody else would like to know what I know about the professional speaking world. And I literally just focused on coaches. like small entrepreneurs, because it's such a beautiful way to really showcase your work and have people come to you instead of, let me post on social media. Like, let me try to, like, there's so many different ways for us to get visible, but why not get seen as the expert in front of an audience that's interested in your topic?
So if I would have asked you, one resource I have to help people is a passion project finder type of thing. And it asks you to go through your life and think about chapters of your life, however you define them, and look for moments of joy. So not trauma, not when bad, horrible things happen, not when your parents got divorced, not when you had to move and leave all your friends, like not that stuff, which is often how we define these different chapters of our life. But if you were just looking for moments of joy when you were a kid, when you were in, grade 6, when you were in junior high, high school, when you went to university, when you had your first apartment, like all these kinds of things, would you have found teaching? Would you have identified joy from education or teaching in any way?
I don't know if I would have called it teaching versus contributing.
Mm-hmm.
If I was a part of something to make something better. If I was a part of something where there are people who aren't necessarily taking action. So it's, like if no one's going to raise their hand, I'll be the one to raise my hand now. It's
exactly.
Let's move this forward, folks.
Yeah, I get it completely. Mm-hmm. I love that because I'm a firm believer that the secret to your lack of passion, the secret to your next step is really just to be more curious about your past and what you've always been attracted to. Right? And so people, we know what it is, but thinking about the next step, thinking about a passion, a project, a purpose, like thinking at that level can be very scary and intimidating because you don't want to get it wrong or it seems too big and nebulous. How are little old you going to figure it out? When there's signs everywhere, you just have to be curious about taking the next best step. And I did a whole episode on that. I'll link it in the show notes, but I knew there had to be something that was all over the place in your past that had little signs about that kind of behavior, that kind of intrigue, right? It's something, if you were on a desert island, you'd be acting the same way. You'd be thinking, like, if you could raise your hand to help go find a shell, you would, or whatever.
Or I'm going to be the one's going to be like, come on, people. Who else wants to go find the shell?
Exactly.
I'll be leading the way, even though I don't know what it is.
Right.
I don't know how to find this shell, but I'm going to figure it out along the way. And I think one of my other, and I'll call it a benefit, because I don't know if I want to call it a superpower, but it definitely helped me the very first time I ever spoke in front of an audience. I'm not going to worry about what are people going to think. Like, that's usually like the furthest thing from my mind is just, here's the task at hand. We have to go find the shell. And I'm not going to worry about, like, if I come back empty-handed, people are going to say, see, we knew that you couldn't find that shell. You should be blah, blah, blah about not finding the shell. Like, all of those things, those comments, like, just never enter my mind. I'm just like, I'm curious. I'm tenacious, but I'm also very resourceful. Let's find a way to find the shell. Let's find a way to figure out the solution to this problem.
What about the people who don't believe they have something valuable to say, even if they're in the helping profession, because it's just so easy to think about what you just said you don't think about. What are people going to say? Are they going to find this interesting? And are they going to get something valuable out of it? How do you help women with that?
There's a way to craft your story in a way that touches people's hearts, their minds, and their souls. That's first off. You don't have to have climbed Mount Everest in order to have a great story. Because I tell people, like, climbing Mount Everest, okay, that's great and inspiring, but most of the people who are going to be in your audience don't even want to climb Mount Everest. They'll just be like, oh, wow, you did that. Fantastic. But I have like 3 kids at home and I'm trying to put them through college and also start my own business. So the more everyday your stories are, the better, because they relate to people. The people in your audience are going to be like, oh, she's just like me. I'm just like her. And that touches them. And now they're going to be leaning in a little bit more and listen more and take action, which is the whole point of why you are speaking, why they're booking you to speak.
Right. And that it definitely, just as you were explaining it, I felt less stress. Like, I don't need to be a brain surgeon to do this.
No.
About one of my favorite stories to tell is my worst parenting moment, which it happened in my kitchen. I call it my mango moment because I had a little kid. I have 3 sons, and one of them was too young to handle a knife and cut a mango. So I'm thinking he must have been 7 or 8, something like that. And you know, when there's avocados and mangoes on your counter and something goes ripe and then it's like all points bulletin, somebody has to eat this mango. It's ripe. Come on now. The avocado's ripe. Somebody has to eat it. It's so funny what goes on in our house. And so he knew that mango was ripe and he kept asking me, Mommy, can you please cut the mango? To which I replied, I'm too busy. And I think I said it at least 2 or 3 times over a few days. And then finally I woke up and what is wrong with me? I'm too busy to cut my kid a ripe, delicious mango. My kid wants to eat fruit. What am I doing?
Right.
I couldn't believe it. And that is a popular podcast episode and blog because so many of us hear ourselves saying that we're too busy. It's very mundane. It's something that most of us can relate to. It sounds like those are the kind of stories you're talking about, not, some giant goal that took a decade to attain.
And looking at your everyday life and being able to find the lessons. How can I apply this everyday story to like what I speak about? I mean, like that is a skill and it's a little bit hard at first. Like today I was literally like taking out the recycling and it's just like, And I'm watching, there's like those lawn sprinklers, a few condos down, and it's like flooding. And so I look at that and I'm just like, wow, once you start speaking, like I always say, it starts to snowball and opportunity is just going to be flooding around you. So it's a skill and it's a game that I play with myself to look at something and how could I use this in a speech if I had to tell this story? What are the lessons that I would want my audience to take away with? So it's just something that you start playing with because you're going to go to the bank and be like, well, how could I use this bank? Well, what if you start asking yourself, well, who shows up at the bank? What does the bank do? How does the bank impact my life? What's a fun story that has happened to me at the bank? And you'll come up with them. And I'm just using bank as one example.
No, I'm thinking of something that, believe me, I'm I'm thinking about it. One of my sisters always said, how do you come up with all those stories on your podcast? She goes, I don't remember anything. And I'm like, well, you have to start thinking like that. And I've also, in my work, many midlife women come to me because they want to meet more people. They want to expand their friendship circle and to start making friends again. As an older woman, it's very different than it was. It feels very different than it was when we were younger. Yes, and definitely. Sometimes people say, well, I'm not that interesting. I don't have anything to talk about. And this is a great way to become interesting. Even though you are interesting, you're not sharing how interesting you are. And it's just owning your stories and observations about the world. But like what you said, taking the time to be curious about minutia.
Yeah.
I love that.
And you'll get better at it also. And then you're going to find everyday stories, just before you're about to speak, from speaking to somebody like in the hallway who's going to be attending, like your session or who might work for the company that you're speaking for. And so you get really good at like, hey, and more impromptu storytelling, being able to share, like I was in the hallway talking to Mary Smith and she told me how. And here's the reason why I'm sharing this story with you is because, and you tie it into what you're speaking about.
That's so funny because right now I'm having this image of, I guess I've gotten very comfortable with some storytelling. I don't like a big audience, but like an in-person audience, that would be something that I could get better at. But when I tell stories in my family, I get eyes rolling to the back of my kids' heads. They're so tired of my stories. And one time I quizzed them. We were on a long trip, like an 8-9 hour drive. And I had two of them in the car with me. It was just the three of us. Or maybe they were all three on that trip. I don't remember. But anyway, I said, we're going to have a little quiz. You guys tell me that I tell my stories too much. I'm going to quiz you and see if you actually know it. You know my stories. I started to quiz them. And I think they got like a 95%. They were listening all these years. Like one example is, who was the first person I saw in concert? They're like, David Bowie. I said, you're right, you're right. And we kept playing the game. And I was surprised. So when people come to you, are most of them coaches? Are they in a specific profession? Or are they all kinds of people that need to do more speaking?
I do work mostly with coaches and also like service professionals, because there's such a need for speakers. You know, there's 250,000 association professional trades that are out there. And there's also globally, there's 20,000 speaking events that will happen today on average.
Wow.
In the US, that number is 7,500. Now, you've probably gone to a conference where there's like 6 or 7 breakout sessions that are going at the same time. Well, that event still counts as one speaking event, even though there's probably 7 times 6, 42 different sessions that are going on in that one day where there's 42 different speakers. It's still considered one event.
Right. So what is your favorite part of the way your career is going now? What lights you up the most about the way you make a professional contribution?
The confidence that grows inside of my clients and my students, because they just realize, wow, I used to be afraid of public speaking, but now that I'm prepared and I know exactly what I'm going to say, they show up so confident to give that speech. However, that confidence spills into other areas of their lives. So I just feel like I become like the proud mama bear as I see them just kind of like grow and step into their inner speaker and really start to share their expertise and their specialty with audiences of all different sizes, and to see their businesses grow, all because they said yes to getting visible in a really focused, concentrated way.
Wow. So you're exuding fulfillment.
Yes. I'm having so much fun. And the other thing because I hear a lot of my students and clients say, don't tell me that I have to like wear a suit or I have to give this speech in this blah, blah way. And I'm just like, no, if you do that, if you force yourself to wear the suit and you're more of a jeans and sneaker type person, you're going to feel weird on stage. If you give this speech like other people in suits give speeches, you're just going to be a carbon copy, or a terrible carbon copy, by the way, of somebody else. I always want people to infuse their personality.
Yeah.
Because nobody can copy your personality. Your personality, your hobbies, what you like and dislike, some fun facts about you. Nobody can ever replicate that in a speech. Only you can share that information. And that's what makes you memorable. That's what people remember, is the fact that, wow, she actually likes to, like, and I had a client and she was a business storyteller and her husband flipped houses. So she's one of those people that has like pink screwdrivers and a pink skill saw. And she was like as feminine as they come. And I told her, I was like, you need to talk about the skill saw, because the men that are in the audience are going to appreciate that and respect you for the fact that, oh, she knows how to use some tools.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the other thing that comes to mind is you don't need to be like in a corporate or a professional setting to use your speaking skills. So even if you are just running a group at your church or synagogue, or you're going to your, I don't know, some hobs like Quilters Guild, and you want to stand up and introduce people, even those opportunities are so much more enjoyable when you feel comfortable in that role.
Yes, 100%. I always say that I've always met some of the most interesting people in line. Whether I'm sitting next to them in a plane, I'm just, waiting, at the grocery store. I just always meet the most interesting people, but to have the confidence just to have that conversation. And so for me, I think that speaking needs to be redefined and stages needs to be redefined. Speaking is me speaking to one person at a networking event and having a great conversation that I remember them. I remember some interesting points and facts about them, and the same for them about me, all the way up to speaking to large audiences with hundreds of people. And stages needs to be redefined because to me, this is not, me being on your podcast, me having my own podcast is not one of those 20,000 speaking events that's happening every single day. That doesn't count. So that's why I think speaking needs to be redefined, because there are some moms that are out there that have small children. They can't hop on an airplane and cross the country to go speak at an industry conference, but they can get on an IG Live or an IG story while their little ones go take their afternoon nap.
It's true. And then what often happens on podcast situation is pets are always coming on the show too. Now, so far, you can see Nico sleeping here, but sometimes he is just participating by barking. And I don't know if you heard my bird. Sometimes the mic picks it up, sometimes it doesn't, but she's not far from us and she participates too. So there's all kinds of shenanigans going on in certain situations. But what would you say the best advice is for somebody who is ready to think about this a little bit more seriously and improve their skills?
Start. Even if you go on IG stories and share a tip, just hitting that record or go live button, it can be a little nerve-wracking, but what I tell people is sticky notes.
Yes.
Write on the sticky note the one or two things that you want to share. And since it's on your phone, because a lot of times people have a tendency to look at themselves while they're speaking, put the sticky note over your face so that you look into the camera. Because when you look into the camera, you are looking into the eyes of whoever is watching. And that's a learned skill.
Yeah.
It's something that I have learned to do I'm not necessarily, because if I'm looking at you, this is what I look like. Mm-hmm. But if I look into the camera, like you see me looking right at you.
Yeah, that is hard to do where the camera is on your phone.
Yes.
Can definitely be hard to do. It is a skill, and I love sticky notes. Sometimes I even bring the sticky note into the talk because I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And I'm like, I have a sticky note. Sometimes I just talk about it because that's reality. Especially in midlife, I personally get flustered sometimes and I completely blank out. So I love the sticky notes. I've got them. Not only do I have sticky notes all around us right now, I also have a label maker, and I have put some things like all of the web addresses that I need to give out for freebies and things like that when I'm talking to people. I have them all around. A little help.
Perfect. And just letting people know that I have sticky notes like all over my screen, and I have label makers that I've written out all of these, the lead magnet URLs. Like the person who's listening to that is like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that too.
Yeah, and what kind of a label maker?
Like, I can do that? Yes, and what kind? Yeah, can you tell me what label maker that is?
Exactly. We do love a good label maker, don't we?
I'm an organized person. I love them personally.
Oh, they're awesome. They are awesome. I was kind of late to the label maker land, but I have a very simple one. But Laurie-Ann, this was so great. I love the way you are just making it, the idea of speaking, so much less scary. And so real. That is something that we can get better at. Some people are maybe a little bit more naturally comfortable speaking, but it's a skill that most of us can improve on. And you've even motivated me when I really am not too motivated to do this. Some people think it's kind of surprising you have a podcast and everything, but I remember Joan London said this too. So she was on, I forget the episode that she was on. I'll link it in the show notes, but she was talking about, she's a public speaker now. It's her main jam. And it was one of the hardest things. She never thought that she would be comfortable doing this. And I just assumed, really? You were on TV for 20 years. Good Morning America, like a big show. She said it's not the same thing at all. It's not the same thing. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I know you have something free that you wanted to offer anybody who's listening.
Yes, if you are interested in learning more about speaking, just to become a better communicator, I would suggest that you grab my in-demand new listener podcast guide, and that you can find at speakandstandout.com/guide, GUIDE. And that also has links to other resources that I have, and it will guide you to my most popular downloaded episodes. So whether you're brand new to speaking, you're a little more seasoned, or you just want to know how to leverage speaking opportunities a little bit more for your business, definitely grab that new listener guide.
Amazing. Laurie-Ann, thank you so much. It was so much fun talking about this topic that makes so many people squirm and scares the heck out of very many people.
Yes.
You're bringing it right down and making it much more doable. So thank you so much. And of course, I'll have all of your links in the show notes.
Thank you very much, Susie. This was a lot of fun.
Okay, that's it for this episode. What did you think? Were you inspired by Laurie-Ann's story? Maybe to notice your inner voice related to burnout, or a wake-up call, or maybe your inner knowing? Maybe challenging yourself to be more open to your ability to speak out more, or even be a speaker yourself. You can totally become a woman who's taking solid action toward becoming unstuck and regret-proofing your life. Being stuck is boring. Developing the confidence and courage to finally go after what you really want, that's way more fun. And I can help you. It starts with your thinking. And this is exactly what we're up to in my Women in the Middle Academy. So if you'd like to see if working together is a good fit for you, head over to www.talktosusie.com and book your free momentum call. This is the best way to learn more about how the Academy can help you go from stuck to fulfilled using creative tools, mindset coaching, joyful planning and accountability, even some mindful doodling in an amazing community of like-minded women. So if you're ready to make changes that are important to you, the Academy is what you're looking for. Now, as you know, my focus as a midlife coach is to help you waste less time spinning and feeling stuck. This is what regret-proofing your life is all about. And like I always say, being the queen of your brain domain, that's the best way to be. For show notes and links, go to www.susierosenstein.com and click on the podcast tab and look for episode 409. You'll also see a link there for my new show, Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, which is all about the reality of running your business when you're a midlife gal. It's also on iTunes, Spotify, and all the places. Let's do this, ladies. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.